On Monday, we saw the sowing of two great seeds, even though Mordecai had no idea what was ahead. He lived a life that sowed a seed of loyalty. And even though Queen Esther knew nothing that lay ahead, she sowed a seed of integrity and gave Mordecai the credit for exposing the death threat against the king. Then in our study yesterday, we saw, here comes Haman. And Haman buys a law for 10,000 sacks of silver that will allow him to get every Jew in the entire kingdom murdered, assassinated. And everybody who participates in helping him murder them gets to keep all the money from all those families that they murdered. Now we begin to see it's time for a harvest. It's time for those seeds that were sown in ignorance. They had no idea what was coming. But because they lived a life of loyalty and integrity, they sowed the seeds of loyalty and integrity. And now it's time to harvest those seeds. But before those seeds are harvested, there's something that waters those seeds, and it's called fasting and prayer. Queen Esther, in order to go before the king, needs fasting and prayer because she's about to break the law. Now, the last queen that violated this was no longer queen. So she comes and she says, if I'm going to go in before the king and I'm not invited, if he does not hold out his scepter, I will die. So she looks at Mordecai and she says, beginning in verse 16 of Esther 4, go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast and pray for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same. So everybody's fasting and praying. She is too. And then, though it is against the law, I will go in and see the king. And if I must die, I must die. But before she goes in to see the king has trouble sleeping one night. Here's the harvest of these two great seeds, watered by fasting and prayer. Esther 6, beginning with verse 1. And I'm going to read you a long passage. That night the king had trouble sleeping. So he ordered an attendant to bring the book of the history of his reign so it could be read to him. God sometimes causes insomnia. In those records, he discovered an account of how Mordecai had exposed the plot of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the eunuchs who had guarded the door to the king's private quarters. They plotted to assassinate King Xerxes. What reward or recognition did we ever give Mordecai for this? The king asked. And his attendants replied, nothing has been done for them. Now listen to me carefully. Sometimes when you've sowed these seeds of integrity and loyalty, you don't see a harvest right away because God's saving that harvest. Mordecai never got anything for doing the right thing. He never even got a thank you for doing the right thing. But God was saving the harvest. Sometimes God saves the harvest. Verse 4. Who is that in the outer court? The king inquired. And it happened, Haman had just arrived in the outer court of the palace to ask the king to impale Mordecai on a pole he had prepared. He said, I'm going to kill Mordecai. So the attendants replied to the king, Haman is out in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. So Haman came in, and the king said, what should I do to honor the man who truly pleases me? Haman, this guy who wants to kill Mordecai and all the Jews, thought to himself, whom would the king wish to honor more than me? So he replied, if the king wishes to honor someone, he should bring out one of the king's own royal robes, as well as a horse that the king himself has ridden, one with a royal emblem on his head. Let the robes and the horse be handed over to one of the king's most noble officials, and let him see that the man whom the king wishes to honor is dressed in the king's robes and led through the city square on the king's horse, and have the officials shout as they go, this is what the king does for someone who he wishes to honor. Excellent, the king said to Haman, quick, take the robes and my horse and do just as you have said for Mordecai the Jew. Oh, I wish I had been a fly on the wall to see Haman's face change as the seed of integrity and the seed of loyalty, watered by fasting and prayer, brings the harvest. Leave out nothing you have suggested. So Haman took the robes, put them on Mordecai, placed him on the king's own horse, and led him to the city square, shouting, this is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor. Afterward, Mordecai returned to the palace gate, but Haman hurried home, dejected and completely humiliated. When Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends what had happened, his wise advisors and his wife said, "Since Mordecai, this man who has humiliated you, is of Jewish birth, you will never succeed in your plans against him. It will be fatal to continue opposing him." Now, beloved, I want you to know that the seed of saving King Xerxes' life not only resulted in the saving of Mordecai's life, it resulted in the saving of the entire Jewish race's life. But it was watered with fasting and prayer. Now, beloved, sometimes you're living a life of integrity, you're living a life of loyalty, and you're sowing those seeds in life, and nobody says thank you. Nobody even seems to notice. But you're sowing seeds. And God is not mocked. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. Now, when you see something happening that's going to require a harvest of those seeds, you activate those seeds. You cause those seeds to grow up into a quick harvest by fasting and prayer. So rather than complain and be kawawa I don't have a harvest of this, instead, remember, God is waiting for just the right time to bring forth this harvest.